Hi guys, this is Kristen with Hooks, Books, and Wanderlust. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to show you how to create a fringe and attach it to your crochet project. Now, if you've been around here for a little bit or dug deep enough, then you might have seen my very first video that I ever uploaded to YouTube, which was a very quick tutorial on how I attach my fringe. I kind of feel like maybe some people might like to have some tips as far as the quickest and easiest way to make fringe. So I thought I would redo the tutorial to show the entire process from start to finish. So fringe is a fun decoration that you can add to the end of a crochet project, and it gives it kind of like a boho flair. I've got a quick fringe that I've made here on, sorry, I keep bumping the camera, on this pretty table runner here. Now this is a very specific type of fringe called lattice fringe. It starts the same way as traditional fringe. So we are going to go ahead and start with that tutorial, and then I will be linking to another follow-up tutorial for this very particular type of lattice fringe. So let's put that aside for now. And I want to go ahead and jump into what you need to do just to make your regular traditional style fringe. So the first thing you're going to need is you need to get your yarn. A nice big hook I find very helpful when you're trying to attach it, and something to wrap around. Now in the past, and in that past tutorial that I mentioned earlier, I have used a piece of cardboard to wrap, and the way I do this is if I want my fringe to hang 6 inches, for example, that's what I'm going to do this tutorial in, then we call that the drop length. So you have a 6-inch drop length. That means I have to cut a piece or strand of yarn that's actually double that amount, because the fringe is actually folded in half. So I will actually need to cut 12-inch long pieces of yarn. Now, the easiest way to do that is to have something that measures a flat 6 inches that you can wrap around. So a piece of cardboard is great if that works for you. In this particular instance, I'm going to use a plate. It's got a very small lip here, and I've got a little piece of tape that I'm going to use to kind of hold my yarn in place. The tape is optional. You can always use your thumb to hold it. That's totally fine too. The only thing to keep in mind is trying to figure out how many strands of yarn you want for your fringe thickness. So the way I usually like to do that is I just pull out a good long bit of the yarn that I'm working with, and I kind of just start to kind of fold it in on itself just to see what thickness I like. So I folded it a few times. You know, I've got, let's see, if I was going to have this, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's kind of thin in my opinion, so I'm going to add more strands to it. So you can count your strands as you're making them. It's thickening up the more I add, and if you want to thin it out, then obviously you'll remove some. So I am going to cut 12-inch pieces of yarn, and I'm going to cut 6 of those pieces for each of my tassels, so that then when I fold it over, it's got a nice thick 12 strands in the actual tassel. So I'm going to go ahead and get to it. I'm going to find the end of my yarn here. And I'm just going to tape it to the bottom edge of my plate or whatever you're wrapping around. The important thing is to line up the end of the yarn with the edge, the bottom edge of the object that you're wrapping, because you want to make sure that that piece of fringe counts as one of your strands. So now with that yarn pulled out and I've got it taped to the bottom edge and my edges are aligned, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping my yarn just kind of loosely. You don't want to go too tight because it's going to pull, and that'll make your lengths a little different depending on how tight you're wrapping in a particular time around. And I'm just going to wrap it right around my plate or your piece of cardboard or whatever you're using a total of 72 times. And again, that 72 comes from 12 tassels that I need to make and 6 strands per tassel. So I'm going to keep wrapping and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back and I've got all of my strands are nice and wrapped around my plate. And I had to go grab a pair of scissors too, so I had forgotten to grab those before we got started. So now from here, I'm just going to go ahead and cut at the bottom edge of the plate, cut my yarn tail there. Move the yarn out of the way. And now all I'm going to do is very carefully go back over and just cut along this very bottom edge of my plate. That's going to loosen up all the strands, and that's going to make all of my 72 strands of fringe. Just real carefully. This is another reason I actually started doing this around a plate, because when I would do this around a piece of cardboard, my scissors kept wanting to cut the cardboard instead of the yarn. So, whoops. I almost lost my extra strand here that was taped to the back. So we'll take that off. Okay. Put that aside. And so now you can see I've got all these lovely strands of yarn that are all roughly, 12 inches long, a little shorter. The plate's not exactly accurate, but it's close enough for me. It's what I used on the last batch too. So as long as they're all the same size, it's all good. All right, so from here, what I'm going to do is, again, because I have 6 strands per tassel, I am going to separate my strands here into little groups of 6. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6. Kind of trying to keep them all grouped as much as I can together because that helps keep the ends together evenly. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're just going to keep doing that. Break them all up into groups of 6, and then I will be right back. Okay, so I have all of my strands separated into 12 groups of 6 strands each, and I am ready to go ahead and start to attach them to my crochet fabric. So I have here a table runner that I have been working on, and I'm going to attach my fringe here in this chain 1 space here at the end of this, the peak of these stitches going all the way across. There are 12 of them, and hence that's why I've got my 12 groups of 6. So the first thing I'm going to show you is to make sure you got your ends as close to evenly matched up as you can. And then go ahead and fold the group in half like so, making a little loop at the top. Now for you crocheters out there, you're going to love this bit because you get to use your hook again. So I use a bigger hook if I have it handy. Sometimes I don't. And in the video tutorial that I have of this this technique, I am totally using a smaller hook, and it was definitely a little finicky trying to get all these strands onto that hook. So for this tutorial, I'm actually using a larger hook, and that's my first tip as far as attaching fringe goes. So use a nice large hook. So I am going to attach my yarn to this chain 1 space here. So I'm going to insert my hook from the bottom side of my fabric to the top. Grab my loop of my strands here that I've made a loop. I'm going to pull it right through. So right now I've got the tail ends of my fringe are kind of going up backwards on my project here, my table runner. So now the next step to secure it is to make a knot. And all this is a yarn over and pull it through that loop. And then all you have to do is tighten it, and you have your first piece of fringe. Start it here. And one thing I'm going to point out is this is just a personal preference. Maybe you might like it the opposite direction, but I like the loop, the top of the loop, to be showing on the right side of my fabric. So that is why I always insert my hook from the back of my fabric to the front when I'm first starting to attach the fringe. So let me line these up a little better here, and we'll do this again just so we can show everybody for the kids in back. Okay. All right, so I've got those lined up. I'm going to fold it in half. Now you see why I was telling you how I wanted a 12 strand fringe, which meant that I needed 6 strands because we're folding them over on themselves and we're getting that double thickness. So we have our loop, and again I am going to insert my hook from the back of my fabric to the front, put that loop on the hook, and then pull it through that space. And then I'm just going to wrap the yarn over my hook and pull the tails of those yarn strands right through that loop, and then cinch it shut. You can give it a nice little tug there. And that is how you attach the fringe. So I'm going to keep doing this all the way across, and then I will come back and show you how to do that last one just one more time, okay? Be right back. Okay, so I've got all of my fringe attached except for this very last one, so I figured I would use this moment to just kind of show you guys one third and final time how to attach the fringe. So again, I'm going to take my crochet hook and I'm going to insert it into the place where I want to attach it on my fabric. From the back of my fabric to the front, I've got my fringe strands folded in half to make a loop at the top. I'm going to grab that loop and I'm going to pull it through the fabric of my crochet fabric here. I've got a nice loop going there, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over those tails over my hook, and I'm going to pull them through the loop that I just made. And I'm just going to pull it tight. And if you're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, oh man, I didn't get those even at all, it's easy enough just to kind of use your fingers and pick the knot back open and reattach, and it's not a big deal. So that is how we make and attach fringe to a piece of crochet or knit fabric. The one thing that I was going to talk to you guys about was if you want to trim your fringe or not. I think it depends kind of on personal preference and how you want your finished piece to look. If it's got more of a boho flair to it, then maybe you can leave them kind of untrimmed and mostly the same length, but you know, like it pulls a little differently sometimes when you attach your fringe, and so they're not perfectly trimmed and aligned at the bottom. I kind of like that in certain circumstances, so I might leave it. Or the other option is to trim your fringe and the straight edge along the bottom of it. That'll help also give it a little bit more of a streamlined look if you don't want that boho look to it, but or maybe you just like having straight edges. I don't know. It's a personal preference. You can choose to do what you want to do. If you choose to trim your fringe and align it, something that I don't know why this didn't occur to me long before now, but just one quick tip is if you have a rotary cutter, if you sew, you might have a rotary cutter and a cutting mat, and I find that immensely quicker and more accurate trying to trim my fringe than just using a pair of scissors. But certainly a pair of scissors and a ruler, that's, very doable as well if you don't have one. So yeah, that's how you make and attach fringe to your fabric. Just a quick note to let you know that I am going to be posting a photo tutorial for this on my blog. If you would like to get a closer view of something, or maybe, sometimes slowing videos down doesn't always help. So I find that having a video tutorial that's supplemented by a photo tutorial and vice versa can often be very helpful. So I will be posting a link for that below in the description box. And I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video that I used that smaller crochet hook to attach my fringe in the photo tutorial. So feel free to look at it just for entertainment purposes, because let me tell you how finicky it was trying to do it that way. Use the bigger hook if you can. Yeah, so I hope that you guys liked that video tutorial and that you found it helpful, and now you are ready to go and fringe your whole world. If you did, hit that like button for me, and thanks for watching. I am going to be posting a lattice fringe tutorial link in the description box below. I kind of showed you guys that a little bit at the beginning of the video, so I just wanted to let you know that that is coming up next. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future tutorials and patterns. Bye guys.